Hello, welcome to the EP7 podcast. You are here with Rachel Donovan and the founder of EP7, Mr. George Helou.
Thanks, Rachel, and thank you for joining us. We love talking about how to get the heart into everything we do to get a lot out of life.
Whether it be relationships, business, careers, you name it. So, let's get started. George, I've got a good topic for us tonight.
Well, what is it?
How to break up with someone. We take it to relationship.
It's like firing.
That's why I thought of it. Exactly. It's firing.
If you've been busy firing people and then you go home and you have to end a relationship, you might accidentally say you're fired just by mistake because you're in the wrong mode.
Oh gosh, make it worse than it is. But I mean, like it's almost like a taboo topic because it's an awkward one. It's unpleasant. No one really wants to just tackle it head on. It's kind of how do I get around it, or how do I avoid it, or how do I weasel through it? It's just a really awful thing to have to do or talk about.
I have a shocking track record in my past where I couldn't break up with people very easily and it would drag on for months.
Was it because you didn't want to hurt them or because you were waiting till someone else came along?
No, I just didn't want to hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look, the first part of it is you're thinking maybe it'll get better, but then you actually lose hope. But hanging in there just doesn't make sense. So breaking up I really think that it's mainly motivated by not wanting to hurt people's feelings, don't you?
Definitely.
I know some people have said that they're afraid not to be alone themselves. They don't want to be lonely, so they're settling. But that's pretty crazy too, because like, what are you going to do? You're just going to resent being with someone, but you've lowered the bar of their value of they're an object that keeps you from being lonely.
Well, it's that old thing of the lesser of two evils, isn't it?
Well, that's pretty hard going.
True.
It's never worked for anyone. I've never seen anyone say, I am so impressed with being able to avoid loneliness by being with someone I don't want to be with. I recommend it to anyone who doesn't want to be lonely. There are no side effects, no consequences. And the fact is there's plenty, isn't there? So whatever the reasons, let's agree that if we're going to talk about how to break up, whatever the reasons for it, let's go through how one would want to break up in a dignified way that's respectful, caring, and doing it in a timely way too, right?
Yeah,
not dragging it on or not doing it abruptly. Do you know what's interesting? There are people who do it so badly, not because they don't have a heart, but because they stress out so much that their brain goes into overdrive and eventually they just panic and they just end up being rude just to get it over and done with.
Yeah.
And then they end up feeling guilty and regret it later.
Yeah.
While others just, suffer in silence.
Yeah, I mean, there have been times when I've broken up with someone and I've rehearsed it.
Yeah.
Rehearsed what I'm going to say and thought about it. But gosh, it's just that worst feeling hanging over you before you've got to do it.
Didn't I help you a while back with one?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I was a good coach. I remember we obviously succeeded.
Yeah. But the thing is, I remember you saying that I had held on to the relationship a bit too long because I'd known before and I still was putting it off a little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm guilty of that, absolutely, just not wanting to confront it or just, hoping it's going to get better. Bringing back to that for a second though, is there anything wrong with hoping it's going to get better or is that really just wasting time?
No, I guess it's what you do with that hope, In what
way?
Well, if you hope it's going to get better, then obviously you got to measure whether it is getting better or not. And you got to look at your impact on whether you help it improve, get better. And you have to have some healthy expectation that the effort you're making to change it from hope to confidence and achievement, that it's working finally, that you want to be able to see that they're responding, they're reciprocating to your effort.
Yeah. So you mean you are putting an effort into not just sitting back and waiting for things to just magically improve, but you are making an effort to give it the best chance. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, look, if you hope it will get better, then obviously you have specific issues in mind that's preventing it from being as good as you want it to be. So do those issues fix themselves? Do those issues just get fixed with hope alone? Or what kind of actions do you need to implement here so that you can inspire that person to maybe be different with you and you're being different with them, and suddenly your hope is justified because there was something there that was worth that effort? See, hope is just you not giving up. Well, that's fine, but if you're not going to give up, what are you going to give? That was really clever there, how I played on those words. If you're not going to give up, I'll give myself a pat on the back.
That's why I left the pause there. I was letting that hang.
Clever. Rach, we've been a good tag team here. I like it. Yeah, so you're not going to give up, so what are you going to give instead? Huh?
You make an excellent point. That is so correct. Because I guess if you distinguish, am I hanging around, because I'm being lazy or I don't want to confront it, or am I really actually hanging in there because I want to give it the best chance and put the right things in place to do that?
Yeah. And then look, a lot of people, they give up on something prematurely because they didn't have the courage to see how they can be different and see what impact that would have on that person. And a lot of people end up missing their opportunities of bringing out the best in someone. And that happens a lot. That actually happens all the time. However, I know too many people, especially with my coaching, where they really do put their A game on, their compassion, their sincerity, and they give, and I call it, innovating the invitation, right? So they invite that person and they are different with that person, but that person chooses to hold on to habits, fears and doubts, and denies what's on offer. And eventually you got to take a deep bow and go, well, I salted his lips, splashed the water, no drinking at all, no matter what happened. So in the end, how do you break up? And I think that's where we're now going to explore, how does one break up when you're clear? When you're clear, it's done. That horse has been flogged. Long dead, mind you. All right. So, okay. Here's a good tip. Write down all the reasons why you need to end the relationship, because by articulating it on paper, externalizing it, you start to have a sense of the bigger picture of why you've come to this conclusion. And also, by the way, this should not be an ambush on the person. Like, in other words, you've been holding it in, and then I need to break up with you. It's like, what the hell is Goony Google, Gus? That's good old Eddie Murphy. That's just unfair to anyone. No one wants to do it for it to be done onto them, right? So let's make sure that when you're breaking up, you've been giving some decent running commentary that is headed in that direction. Can we at least put that in? Can we lock that in, Eddie?
Lock it in.
Yeah, good. Okay, so once you've articulated all the reasons, the important thing when you're breaking up is to balance it with what you feel you haven't been able to do in the relationship as well. So that that. So in other words, I have honestly wanted this relationship to work. I have tried to come up with ways for it to work. I've been open about my own frustrations with the ways I've been trying to connect better and really create a real good understanding between us is not, and our values. I feel like it's always a struggle with our values. Like, I value this, but you don't seem to care about that. And I'm thinking, well, how much can I compromise? Because, everyone's different and you got to have some individuality. How much do I compromise before it becomes more of a chore to be with a partner than a delight, you know? So once you get clear about all that, I think you should be able to explain that you've come to the conclusion that you will be better off parting ways because you guys are holding a space together, almost like a stalemate, where the values you deserve are not present. And if you don't have the courage to break it and allow yourselves to discover where those values can exist with other partners, then it's not going to be healthy for you. And the opportunities you miss because there are other people waiting to click better with you for some reason. And here's the thing. It's not like you didn't try to click. It's not like, but we're all human. We're all limited. We've got to do our best. And if our best to a point is not good enough, then you need to give yourself permission to have not found what it takes to make that relationship work, and allow them the grace of not finding what it takes to make the relationship work, and move on. And if that person starts to get distressed and upset, because that's the thing you fear, right? I'm imagining.
Yeah.
Then you get to validate that it's not easy. You get to be comfortable that it's meant to be painful, Rachel. It's meant to be painful.
Comfortable.
Yes, because...
How do you get comfortable with that?
Well, accept it. Allow discomfort, allow pain, emotional pain to exist, because it's friggin' part of life. You know, it's not, you're not meant to enjoy it. It's not like you're crossing over to, you know, some sadistic sociopath. What I'm saying is, if someone's upset, like, it's like even parenting. If you can't handle your child being upset because they didn't get their way, then you're going to always feel like you need to bend their way, and they're going to get used to manipulating through that way, right? So anyway, as adults, you'd like to think that if someone's upset, and even in a woman's situation, a man starts to cry, I mean, that's kind of a bit of a shock, because the bloke's been all tough up until that moment, and now he's turned to jelly. That could be a little bit confronting for a woman who's been begging for feelings, and now at the finish line, they all just gush out, right? The thing is, though, if you chose to give that person a chance because you spoke of breaking up and then they put on the feelings, yeah, you may choose to give them another chance. They may go back to their old habits. You may then have to have ding, ding, ding round 2 trying to break up because it was short-lived. And then, you know, we go a few rounds before you break up officially. I get that, right? But ultimately, if you're not comfortable in them being upset, you will procrastinate off breaking up. Anyway, you have to be comfortable. It's normal and natural for people to be upset. And if you validate and let them know that you understand that they're upset and that you are too, right? You know, nobody wants something to come to an end, because very rarely is it all bad. And so acknowledge that, you know?
Yeah, because I've had a friend who was dating a guy, and look, it's a happy ending actually together.
Yeah.
But she, because hazing in every single way, did everything for her. Like, there was not necessarily a problem. It was just there wasn't for her much chemistry in terms of like really sure if she was really into it kind of thing. So there was nothing that she could really put him at fault with.
Okay, hang on. There are more details to that. Normally.
Right.
Well,
okay.
Normally when you're not feeling it, you can actually find why.
Okay.
And it's really, really good to find why, because breaking up with someone because you're just not feeling it is a slap to the face. It's like, yeah, you're just flawed. You're just a flawed model that doesn't really get me. Like, you don't move me. You fail. We deserve better than that. We need to go deeper as to why. And my hunch normally is that when people are being true to themselves, they're more attractive, and they're going to actually attract more people. Like, in other words, one guy or one girl who is in her flow, comfortable in her own skin, will have people lining up to have a chance to be with her or him. So, well, what's the go there? What's with I don't feel the chemistry, yet 1,000 people want to feel the chemistry with that one? Plenty of people lining up for that chemistry. What's different? So this is a good tip. If you're not feeling it with someone, start to look at where that person's not being themselves. Start to look at whether they are compromising too much, they're not challenging views, they're not showing substance behind what they stand for. They're too afraid of a debate. They're too afraid to fight for something they're passionate about, because that's squashing the life out of your spirit if you're trying to be too amiable. And I don't see chemistry happening very well in those situations. If you get two timid people that are very sensitive and therefore very understated, and they have chemistry for one another, that's because their indirect nature, the little cues, they notice a lot. So yes, they can have chemistry with one another. But generally, if there are people just like they need a little bit more of fireworks in the personality to engage with, and they're not feeling it, then look there, and therefore you can have a good conversation with that person about what is missing. I'm just fighting
As
for
in
the,
yeah.
I'm just
You're fighting for who?
I'm fighting for the poor guys and girls who got good hearts, mean well, but they don't know they're being too amiable, and they're not allowing their spirit to show, which is very attractive. And then they end up getting brokenhearted because they don't understand why someone who they loved would do anything for, anything. But this is the double-edged sword. If you do anything for anyone, that starts to smell like a weakness where you don't have your own individuality. So the more you do for them, it's like, Eddie Murphy's Coming to America. Bark like a dog and hop on one leg. And he was so not attracted, even though he could have whichever woman he wanted in his country. The whole point of going to another country is because America represented the woman who had zest and spirit, and she had her own opinions, she was her own woman, and he was craving that, and it wasn't existing in his whatever country he was in, right? So yeah, I'm just fighting for those guys to start to go, no, stuff this. I don't want to keep getting hurt this way. Well, I'm willing to do anything for anyone. And then they just don't appreciate, they don't reciprocate, they're turned off me. I mean, it must be very confusing for them. Anyway, so going back to breaking up. So if you validate and express that it's not easy for you, it's not easy for them, and they start questioning why, you should have answers to share. You should actually have moments where you ask for things to be in a certain way and that person kept not responding. And you should be able to just talk about that without judgment anymore. In other words, this is not about convincing them. This is just about enlightening them that there were patterns, and it was your responsibility to bring a conclusion to those patterns, not theirs, because you were the one that was suffering from that, and you had to break the relationship for that reason. And if they say, give me another chance, say you said that the last 11 times when I said to you, this is not going in the right direction. This relationship won't have the legs if we can't address this issue. I already said it 11 times. So
that's another point in that it's important to be communicating throughout relationships when things are bothering you, because I know in many cases that, myself included, that it was nothing was ever mentioned, that there was something wrong, and then boom.
Yeah.
It's over. And
yeah, I get the damage. Clients come to me with that damage, and I have to help them understand the other side, the insecurity, the lack of communication, and because it's hard. It's really hard. So yeah, you want to break up well? Give them a running commentary of how you're being affected and why the relationship is not having the legs that they may think it does. And if they can't respond in a timely manner, they won't be shocked when you say, I think we need to call it a day. Because if you did it really well, you know what they'll say to you? I know. And I'm sorry. You deserve better. And I just appreciate the time we've had together. And I appreciate the fact that you gave me that many chances. And I just got some soul searching to do about you were asking me for reasonable things, and I just couldn't respond and yeah, I'm sad and I'm going to kick myself for not getting my act together. Yeah, I'm sorry. If you manage it well, that's going to be a humble conclusion of how they will respond with you. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
Mm-hmm.
But look at what you would have had to have done to earn that response. That's your end game. So do everything to get to that end game, and therefore you can't lose, because if you end a relationship where that's the response, you should be proud of yourself because you were all heart and courage all the way. You communicated all the way. And you're probably going to maximize the chances of making a relationship work. So this is the irony. You're being the best you can be to make the relationship work, but you can't lose because the exit is graceful. You know, anyone that can be like that is really primed for a beautiful, meaningful relationship. And they're going to more likely have the discernment in the dating period to start to kind of look for the character that they would want, that can meet them at that equal level of giving and taking.
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it's a work in progress and you're learning at every experience. So you just got to give yourself permission to have that journey. And every moment is like a little classroom of what's going on here? How am I processing this? Who do I want to be? What values do I want to prioritize in the way I touch this moment and engage this person? And if you just hang there and honor the canvas of that moment with that person from moment to moment, I think you'll always be happy where it takes you, whether you're with them or not. Don't you think?
Don't know. I don't know if I don't understand what you mean by that.
Okay, so say you're with someone and they are not sharing.
Okay.
Right? And you're thinking to yourself, I don't know if this relationship's going to have the legs because we're not really connecting, we're not communicating. So you actually, in that moment, you decide to load that moment with the values of compassion, courage, assertiveness, and light heart. So if I was to mix those values together in that moment, how would I be with that person? I might be saying something like, you don't come through with responses in a very timely manner. And sometimes I feel like you have a ball and chain on you in our connection. And the hang time, the silence, the lack of responses is telling me you actually may not be fit to be in a relationship yet. And I personally wished you would be because I really like you. But I am going to be telling you what impact it has on me so that you know whether you want to be in my future or not. And this is not the way to go about it.
George, you say it so well.
Well, it's recorded. So, no, but was it compassionate? Was it courageous, assertive? Was it lighthearted enough? Because I wasn't, maybe it wasn't that lighthearted.
It was. But it was also full of self-worth, and there was, abundance in terms of not hanging all your expectations on this one relationship that you believe that you can let go when others are out there. There was like a lot in that.
But also it didn't have big judgment. Like it wasn't like you've let me down. It was just saying, hey, look, life has consequences, cause and effect. And I just want you to know that the cause you're being has an effect that you may not want. And I personally don't want that effect either for us. But hey, if you really want to be, loving that cause that much, then I'll just have to take a deep bow and accept the effect, which is we won't be together.
Yeah.
So you're inviting them to acknowledge the fork in the road. Move into the way they think or act, aligned with opening up and connecting, and you have an effect of a beautiful relationship. Or hold on to the fear and doubt of staying closed and not sharing, and understand that the conclusion of that is we may be friends or acquaintances, but we sure ain't going to be in a relationship. So see those values in that moment? They're always available for you to play in how you want to be, no matter what the context, from moment to moment. And that's why when I was saying to you before, where that takes you will always be beautiful, with or without that person. So you feel deeply satisfied that you have now the courage to help your friends know how to break up really well?
I think I'd ask them to listen to the podcast. But...
I knew you were going to say that. I'm glad we did this one because I know a lot of people that hang in toxic relationships and it has very bad ramifications on their health, their opportunities, their mood at work. Across the board, relationships actually, they affect our moods so much that everything else suffers as a result.
Yeah.
So learning how to break up and learning how to be before you get to the breakup is a good thing. And I think we've got other podcasts that really talk about how to be in a relationship that's quite better. So if people are catching this podcast and going, oh, okay, well, it was a bit light on the how to be, Well, we've got other podcasts on that, don't we? Heaps of them.
Yeah, we do. We'll list them in the notes as well.
Cool. Good idea.
So, yeah. Well, thanks, George. I think you've not just touched on, but really explored the idea of breaking up and how to approach that in a way that's, facing head on a really what would be like a hard thing to do, an awkward time.
Yeah, if you can't have a breakthrough, break up. And on that note,
we'll leave it there. Thanks for joining us on an EP7 podcast. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us on another EP7 podcast. If you liked what you heard, remember to share and subscribe so you're notified of every podcast released. If you have any questions or would like to connect with us, please jump on the EP7 official Facebook page. We'd love to hear from you.